Elvis is the greatest star that has ever lived, hands down.
He's the last human being on earth I'd be jealous of, the very last.
Gosh, yes.
Extremely handsome, sensitive, vulnerable, great voice.
Pimply faced and ugly.
I think most people that he met, their lives were altered by him.
And I went, why doesn't some crazy SOB send me a song like that? I could cut it.
So this is a beautiful house built in 1837, kind of antebellum. And this hotel on the right here, the old Hotel Pontotoc, in legend and lore, this is where Elvis lost his virginity. You know, in the context of giving my tours around Memphis and meeting a lot of Elvis fans, I would have to say that like 95% of them are really cool, smart, ordinary people who happen to, you know, love this pop icon who really delivered the goods.
His song moves me.
We are so dedicated to him, you know, that we love to sit out here, you know, and it just, to us, we feel like it's just our giving back to him.
People here, it's like a big family, you know, it's a country kind of thing, you know.
Why do you like Elvis so much?
I don't know, that's really hard to explain.
But then there's this 5%, you know, he's still not dead, blessed by God. Like right after Elvis died, within a few days, they put him in the mausoleum, there were two guys that got arrested for body snatching. They were going to go out there and steal the body. And I've thought about that, and, you know, why would they want to do that? Sort of not as a, you know, it's not souvenir material. I think it's much like Jesus and rolling away the stone. They wanted to lift that casket and see that he wasn't in there.
It all started was had a contest worldwide to find out who'd be the top fan of history world after Elvis died. So anyway, somehow they come up and selected us, and now Elvis Presley, like I said, is the king of rock and roll, the king of entertainment, and they've got us listed as the king of Elvis fans. Yeah, pretty nice. We ain't trying to duplicate Graceland. There's only one Graceland in the history of the world. This place you're at right now is Graceland 2, with a T-O-O, see?
But in general, it's not so much that the collection itself is like hugely valuable, and you're looking at, you know, Elvis memorabilia second to none. It's more the guy's obsession on display for everyone to see, and you just stand there looking at like, how could anyone spend so much time on one thing, you know, constantly?
You can go up there at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning and knock on the door, and he'll come down and let you in his house.
Wall Street always had to raise it up $2. That kind of tours an hour and a half. Wall's tours was 12 hours from Belgium.
He documented all that stuff. That takes a genius. I don't think I could do that.
This place ought to be declared a national monument, the Taj Mahal of Elvisology. Elvis spirit is alive in this place. Fans from Tupelo who love this better than Graceland.
Any mention of Elvis, he taped it. You know, he's got all those tapes.
We tape everything 24 hours a day, and we tell you, we don't care what show it is and who said it on this planet. This is said on tape, like I think it's 2,811. The date was 11/20. I guess it was last night.
You've got Graceland on one side of us and the birthplace on the other, and this is just a fan, and he's a fan that's gone over the, kind of over the top, whereas these other people haven't gone that far. But that's where he's, you know, he's just a huge fan.
Elvis is the greatest singer and entertainer, bar none on this planet. Ranked only behind Jesus Christ, not beside him, not in front of him, but behind him.
You know anything about Paul McLeod and Graceland too? Have you ever been down there?
God, never been down there, but I've kept up with him for 40 years or 50 years, whatever. He's an idiot.
But this is going to be a scene of like Jailhouse Rock for prisoners and everything else. And you chain them up here and you take a whip and you beat the hell out of them. I'll show you the doors. We have 3 different ways in. Really 4 if you want to bring in a helicopter. You can open up the door and you can say anything. Yeah, what do you want us to do? You got some prisoners out here you want us to bring in? Who are they? Who'd you say? Pedophiles. Bring them in here and we'll beat the hell out of them. See it? raping little kids, we don't like that. Get him in here.
I really don't hear any negative things about him. They kind of respect what he does. I think it's kind of like I do my baskets, and I create my own thing, and I think he like creates his own ways, his own personality or something, you know. I think he paints what he feels.
Get a bunch of cans of spray paint back here and spray them all blue for this year, Blue Christmas, because all these trees back here were doing it blue. Basketballs are making them up like bowling balls and filling them with cement. And I got a brand new 9-pound sledgehammer. It's gonna look like I was out there breaking up cement with Sylvester Stallone.
It's one of the most bizarre places I've ever been. And I've run with the bulls, and I've been to India, and I've been to every state in the U.S. and all this stuff, and it's one of the most bizarre places I've ever been. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, you got to do what makes you happy, and this made me happy. I ain't got no complaints. You got to do something with your life. Why not do something that makes you happy? I guess I found my coming here. What life is about. This is what I'm about. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty nice.
What do you like most about Elvis Presley? The way he looked, his voice, the way he acted.
His character, how something like that.
Yeah. His heart.
Yes.
His soul.
Yes. All right. Papi. This is Papi.
I live on the 13th floor, Lucky 13. Hi. And whenever people come to my apartment, they say, you have a 13th floor? You know, usually buildings don't have 13 floors. But I always say, yeah, it's Lucky 13. You know, like the movie, The Astronauts. Apollo 13. Mm-hmm.
So how long have you lived in Memphis? What's your name, first of all?
Oh, I'm Vicki Fritz, and I'm from Milwaukee. I was born in Madison, but I'm originally from Milwaukee. And I moved here over 3.5 years ago. And I really moved here because of Elvis. I know that sounds, you know, just totally ridiculous. I always have to show everyone, because Elvis is kind of secretly everywhere in my apartment. For instance, you can just open up my cupboards and you'll find him. And Elvis is in here. Andy, you've got to kind of come in here because it's just he's just on the bottom. This is my favorite, Andy, so you want to zoom in here. Because it's very patriotic. It shows, and as we all know, Elvis was a very patriotic person. And this is an Elvis salt and pepper shaker. Okay, Andy, do you want to I've got one more Elvis cabinet to show you. And it's not all Elvis, unfortunately, but just, it's a little bit Elvis. It actually just these two, because this is really cool for, you know, Elvis cookies. It's pretty neat. There was a time where I had a lot of time, and I was doing, and this, I mean, I'm not trying to promote this or anything, but anyhow, I drew this. This is little Elvis from the famous picture of him and his, and Priscilla, when, I think that's the most beautiful picture of her when she's just sort of, when Elvis is leaving Germany.
What do you like about Elvis? What drew you to Elvis? Why is he such an important part of your life?
I truly believe that it's truly a very personal reason. The best way I can describe it is it's almost like falling in love, you know. It's, you know, when you think of the movie Camelot, you know, you can't touch it, you can't smell it or taste it or feel it. It's just a feeling that's there. This bedroom set is the Vegas style, which is very simple, as you can see. And all the hardware, it has, you know, Elvis's initials, EP. And this is pretty cool because you've got the EP here, which is, that's pretty artsy, and, you know. And I came up with this idea. I wanted so that, you know, when you walked into this room, you got Elvis's perspective. And what's interesting about this picture too is, you know, you look at the men, you know, in their sailor outfits and everything, and the clothes, and I don't know if you can see, but there's a young girl up in the, on this side, on the right side, you see she's covering her face like, oh my God, you know, and like this girl, she's touching the light. I hope she didn't burn her finger there. Think of people that, you know, just go through life and don't get excited about something and don't have a real like, oh, you know, that really, you know, that's so great. And to be able to study it, I mean, I feel so blessed that I have this passion. I mean, I'm the lucky one. And two, being single, you know, when I feel sad, you know, I'll, you know, watch one of Elvis's movies. Probably the last person that, you know, I, you know, had very deep feelings for. I remember he was busy doing some work. And I was at his house one evening, and he's, you know, he was, at that time, he was just an absolute prince. And you know, he knew, of course, how much I loved Elvis, but he had work to do, you know, and it was kind of like, you know, I was like, that's okay, you know, you go and do your thing, I'm fine. And he knew he had an Elvis tape or something on Elvis was on, and he was like, oh good, I know how to take care of Vicky. I'm just going to put this on, you know, and I'll know she's fine, you know, so she'll be set, she's not going to be bored, you know. And I remember he came down the stairs, and he came and sat with me, you know, and I was kind of, you know, laying down on the couch, and he was kind of laying next to me just for a minute, you know, just to check on me. And I said, yeah, just, you know, just stay really close to me. And I was hugging him, and he's like, I know what you're doing. You know, you're hugging me, but you're pretending that I'm Elvis. I know what's going on in your head, you know. And it was just, you know, we both laughed, you know.
Were you a little bit?
No. Well, actually, yes. It was just like, just stay where you are. Okay, wait a minute, move your head over. I can't see the picture. I can't see Elvis.
And why do you like Elvis so much?
Because he was really nice to people. He gives people his cars, and he sings really good. And his voice sounds good.
From what I'm understanding, we're on the ground floor of the Elvises that are getting started at the girls. And so we're trying to promote girls in, you know, impersonating Elvis. And there's already a little girl in the area that performs as Elvis and has made demos in his son's studio. And that is our next step. We're going to go all the way with it. So that's where we're at. So it's go girls, we can do it.
But I was standing in the lawn in the shadows, looking out over the fence, and you know, there were the people with their candles getting ready to come walking up, and it was very much like the Wizard of Oz meets the Catholic Church, you know, and this is our royalty. I mean, there was a formality about it like the Catholic Church, and yet there was this bizarre, you know, atmosphere like the Wizard of Oz about the whole thing, you know, and but that's ours, man. I mean, there's other things, but the Candlelight Vigil at Graceland in August, man, where we pay homage to who we are.
It's hard to put in words, even though that's all we have, to communicate these realities, what that was like that day, what it's been like since then. But I can tell you that his father asked me to go to the mortuary to do Elvis's hair. And I said, yes, I will go. And Charlie Hodge went with me for moral support, thankfully. So the next morning at 8 o'clock, I went to the mortuary, and there were thousands of fans outside. I can see them standing outside, hanging onto the gates, the wired fence. It was very hot and very humid. And I see the faces on people crying, little people, old people, black people, white people. And a cop led me down this long corridor that was dark. And all I could hear, reverberation of everyone's footsteps against the walls, and my heart beating. Bum, 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 like that. Because I knew what I was gonna, I knew. And there I see a table. And as I approached it, there's a body on a table. And I walked up to it, and there's Elvis. Sleeping. I was gonna wake up. This is a joke. This is a joke. He's sleeping. But I knew he wasn't. Charlie walks to the other side, and I'm standing here. The police leave. Everyone else leaves. There's a couple of morticians. They were still working on his hands, putting makeup on. And I stood there looking at that face, that beautiful aquiline nose, those lips. I was immobile. I was transfixed for 20, I don't know how long, 30, I don't know. In eternity? I kept looking. And it was time to do his hair. When the life force leaves the body, the hair is that much weaker. So he's lying horizontal on top of it. So I sprayed it, I put some gel on it. But before I did that, I noticed a regrowth of white hair everywhere. It was premature gray. And there was a lady mortician, I asked her if she had her mascara, because I didn't think to bring my dyes. She did, and it was black, thank God. Teeny weeny brush that they used to use in those days. I spit in it and smeared it and put it on. Faked the whole thing. But his hair wouldn't work. It wouldn't work. I did it over and over, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what am I going to do? I have to get his hair, you know. So I worked on it for another 30, 40 minutes. And I teased the hair a little bit. Finally got it into shape, and I sprayed it, and I sprayed it, and I sprayed it. Wow. They brought his body to Graceland around noon. There were 100,000 people there in front. Brought his body into the room, and little Lisa, she came up to see her daddy. She walks up and starts putting her fingers through his hair. And I can't stop her. And she walked away, and I went back, and so I stood with that body all day. You know, I don't want to sound macabre or strange, but as time went by, I kept looking at Elvis's face, and it's like he was so peaceful. It looked so peaceful, and it got more so. Remember, James Brown came in a couple hours later, and he sat in a chair all afternoon and wouldn't leave. He was really shaken up. They loved each other. They were buddies. And the next day was the funeral. Wow. That was beyond. That funeral was beyond. And the last thing I'm going to tell you is I did something. I did it purposefully, consciously. At the funeral, at the end of the funeral, that was his dad, Vernon, and Joe Esposito, and Jerry Schilling, and George Klein, and Alan Fortas, and Billy Smith, and a few people were standing by the casket, and Joe Esposito took Elvis's TCB diamond ring off and handed it to Vernon. Now the lid is coming down for the very last time. And the lid's coming down. And I put my hand in real fast, and I put it on Elvis's forehead, and I said something silently. And the lid came down, and I wanted to do it, and I did it.
Huzzie, not SS. It's a totally different Huzzie.
Like hussies.
Yeah.
Yes, we're not.
We're not hussies.
We're
Huzzies. We have a group of female friends, just close friends that like to party, have a good time together. The actual Elvis trip started back in '97. This is one that eats, sleeps, and drinks 24/7 Elvis.
I'm into body modification for Elvis, sort of.
Pull it up. Pull it up.
I was a bit of a rebel when I was a teenager, and I think I, sort of identified with him.
I moseyed on up toward as close to the stage area as I could get. And Elvis heard me because I was screaming. And he heard me and he turned and he winked and nodded and he came back and motioned. And so the guard came up and helped me up there and I got a nice kiss. It's got to be as close to heaven as there is.
I do remember the devastation I felt when I heard he had died. And I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing, and how I thought the world would never be the same without it. I don't really think I ever realized that I was an Elvis fan until that point. Because it felt like an immediate member of my family had passed. I was just totally devastated. I broke down at work and cried. Our kids make fun of us and chastise us severely about our infatuation.
Except for my children, they don't talk bad about their father. my grandchildren call him Grandpa Elvis.
Favorite thing about Elvis?
Oh, goodness.
It's hard.
Excuse me?
That's hard.
Oh.
Joanne.
I just thought that's a tough question.
He's a fantastic kisser. Was a fantastic kisser. That's my favorite.
Gosh, I don't know. The whole package, the looks, the voice, the charisma, the soul, everything. Total package.
I think that I keep going back to where he came from. That's the piece I can identify with most, is because I grew up on a farm, a poor kid. We never knew we were poor, but I don't forget where I came from, and neither did he.
If there's anything you could say to him, what would it be?
Oh, I love you. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
For me.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else you could say.
Yeah. Yeah, still do and always will.
I still get cold chills. He's just, even though he's been gone for 28 years, he's still here and will always be.
Mm-hmm.
Where is the child support check, baby? I'm sorry. Edit.
That film's going on the floor.
This is Lauderdale Courts. This is where Elvis grew up when he was living here in Memphis. This is where he went to high school. He was a C student. A lot of his classmates don't have vivid memories of him because he was the kid that sat in the back of the sat in the back of the classroom.
There hadn't been a true story about Elvis yet. Idiot, moron, savant. All of his teeth were brown, green, and yeller. Pimply-faced and ugly. I call it Elvis shit. He was a sissy baby, titty baby, mama's baby. He had a 5-inch brick in him that he couldn't crap out.
Back in Nazareth one day,
Jimmy grew up in the courts here, and Jimmy's younger brother, Jesse Lee, was a known guitar player. If you're a rockabilly fan, you know the songs Red Hot Rockin' Blue, The South's Gonna Rise Again. These are songs that Jimmy wrote the lyrics to, and his younger brother performed them.
My brother was Elvis's master, mentor, tutor, teacher.
He's the one that taught him the guitar chords.
And then how to harmonize and so many things the world has never been told.
Jimmy's younger brother was sort of the kids, he was the guy that, was going for it. And everybody knew he was the best talent and he was going to get a hit record. And Elvis was this pimply-faced little kid that the bullies would beat up. And then suddenly, Elvis is the king of rock and roll and Jimmy's younger brother is like forgotten in history. And so Jimmy sees Elvis as this punk kid from the neighborhood, not as some great, you know, icon, pop star that we know him as. So that's Jimmy's story.
My mother one day said to me, Jesse Lee, Mrs. Presley has begged me to ask you if you'll teach Elvis how to sing and play on the guitar like you do. And I said, Mama, I'm not teaching that little chicken nothing. And Mama said, why, you know? And naturally, you know, why? And I said, well, Mama, I said, all the little kids over here just saying he's a big chicken scared to death of everything, and I don't want them laughing at me if I teach him how to sing and play. So she said, just remember, Jesse Lee, whatsoever you do for these, the least of my brothers, that you're doing to me. And she gritted her teeth and says, and Jesus said that. So what right did I have? You know, I said, well, send him over, Mom. I was a whip puppy, you know. Well, send him over. And so that's when I got a good kid. You know, I got along great with him and everything. But he didn't learn quick. He was a very slow learner, I have to tell you the truth. One day, my sister Virginia sent me a demo of That's All Right, Mama, Blue Moon. She said, your protege is making it back here in Memphis. And so I listened to it. I said, well, I don't hear that much on this record. It doesn't totally knock me out. But of course, I didn't understand rock and roll either, you know. It was new to us, you know. We were country.
He'd only been a musician 10 years then. 10 before he taught Elvis.
So anyway, I got that record and I thought Hank Williams had just died. You'll like this part. Hank Williams had just died somewhere up in Ohio, and I knew the man who made him famous was Fred Rose in Nashville, Tennessee. Acuff Rose Publishing. Roy Acuff and him were partners. See? And he was a great writer. So I said, I know what I'll do. I'll get in the car and I'll go to Nashville and cut Elvis off at the pass, you know? That's true. And it's what I did, you know? And so I got down there about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I didn't have much money, but I had enough to get a tank full of gas. And that would get me home if things didn't work out between me and Fred. Sad, this part is sad. So Fred Rose looked at me, and I'm holding the neck of my guitar in my left hand, you know, just hanging out in the open. And he says, what are you going to do with that guitar? I said, Mr. Rose, I felt like that since Hank died, then you need somebody excellent to come over here and sing for you and to do it and to record and stuff. He shook his head, you know, and he said, well, he's the last person out of that building. He locked it up, you know, he was locking it up when I ran up there with my guitar. And he said, well, I'll tell you one thing, kid. You better be able to play that damn thing, or I'm going to throw your ass right out of here. And that's the truth. I went in there and played for him. Every song I played for him, he said, kid, you are the best I've ever heard in my life. He whipped out some money. He pulled out a wad that would choke a horse, and he peeled me off some money. He said, look, get yourself a good steak and get yourself a motel room tonight. He said, I would take you to my house, but my wife gets upset when I bring new people that she doesn't know to the house. So he said, if you will meet me here at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'll take you out to my house. And I had been really blabbing about that great band that Hank Williams had. He said, Lee, you'll never guess who I've got at my house for 2 weeks. The Hank Williams Band. They're going to be there because Ray Price inherited the band, which I didn't know till he told me. And he said, Ray Price is on vacation down in Texas. So I've got the whole group here, and we have a studio right at my house. So he says, we're going to start on your career tomorrow. I got there at 8:30. I finally got the courage to rush up there and see what the hell that wreath was on the door. It had writing in it and stuff. And I said, Mama's right, you know. I said, these hillbillies down here are starting Christmas earlier and earlier every year, you know. And so I said, I'll just go see what that says. Fred Rose took a heart attack that night and died. And I lost the best break that anybody could ever ask for. I lost that break, but you know, maybe it's in God's hands.
The greatest songwriter to ever come out of Nashville. He was the biggest.
He was great, yeah.
And Lee, that's the best opportunity he ever had in his life.
Well, you know, I knew it was a golden opportunity. There's no way you're going to beat him. I've been reading about him for 15 years in Country Song Roundup, how he made Hank Williams, how he made anybody who he touched, they turned to platinum, you know. It's the greatest break that anybody could ever get. And for him to tell me you're the best I've ever heard in my life really meant something to me, you know. And so I was just all gung-ho. He says, you're going to be here 9 o'clock in the morning. We're going to start on your career. There it is.
Blessed Mother, we pray to thee. Thanks for the miracle of your rosary.
Inspired to call me Mr. Snow. And he goes, but what makes these miracles happen? I may be high, I don't know. But what makes these miracles happen? And what makes my heart spring to sing over all these happy helpers of the rainbow? Why have they chosen me to dress up in white like a king? Why do I hear angels singing every single time the great white eagle climbs over Earth's eternal rainbow? Every time I make clouds snow, I'm touching the world and I'm making it shine.
We were just teenagers when we met, you know, so we were young and in love, and everything exciting was happening or was about to happen with his career at that time. His record had not been released, so he was just a young guy with ambitions, and I was just privileged to be with him when that all was happening. In fact, I've had someone ask me, were all my friends in school, my girlfriends, jealous when he and I started dating? And I said, well, no, really, most of them thought I was kind of strange because I was dating him, you know, because it was like, why are you going with him, you know, because he was not our typical high school guy. Even my parents, the first date we had, the first time he came to pick me up, my mom, I had told her all about him, but when he met my mom, she wouldn't let us leave home that night. So we spent our first night at my house because Mother was like, oh no, you can't go with him tonight. So we had to stay home and let my parents get acquainted with him, and they loved him immediately. At the end of June, we have a family in Florida, so we went down there for vacation every year. We had just been down there a couple of days. When we got back to Memphis, we turned the radio on. They were playing Blue Moon of Kentucky, which was the flip side of That's All Right. And everybody in my family just went berserk. You know, it was just, it was such a shock, you know, because hearing him in the studio just plunking on the guitar, you know, but then when you hear the real deal, and that was the first time I'd heard it on the radio when they played it, it was just most exciting. When he started making public appearances, you know, and all those people were there, it just blew my mind, you know. And of course, like I said, I was a teenager and I kept thinking, you know, they need to back off and leave him alone because he needs to come home. And it was kind of funny, you know, to think about that now, because it was like, in fact, he and I had laughed about that later, because we thought we wanted him to sing and we wanted him to do well, we wanted him to make records, but in my mind, I still thought he would do that like from 9 to 5, you know, and he'd still come home every day at 5 o'clock. Well, of course, we found out real soon that that was not ever going to be 9 to 5. And so his life, our life together as anything that seemed like normal, was slipping away very, very suddenly.
The night he picked me up at the recording studio, he said, well, tell me about the song you wrote. And I said, well, the title is Please Convince Me. And so he said, tell me how it goes. So I said, please convince me that you love me. I was doing it so kind of slow with the ballad. So he went, please convince me that you love me, do-do-do-do-do, that your love for me is real. I said, Elvis, don't take my song and rock and roll it. What a fool. What a fool. I could have been living in a mansion now. Elvis was trying to make the song good, and I wouldn't let him.
What I thought was my business plan going in this direction sort of just, you know, turned 90 degrees because of Elvis. Not just the economic opportunity of Elvis, because I've been affected by his life story, but I'm making a living. I'm making my living, you know, because Elvis walked the planet.
Doing?
I'm doing good.
All right, come on in. Set spell. The first place I ever sang it was a bar called Muffins on 2nd Avenue. We were in there for a party, and I just, you know, I just got up with a piano player and started singing. And when I would do the Elvis stuff, like in a tuxedo, and eventually people, well, you should do this stuff in the costume, and that's kind of how it evolved. What I would do is I would rent costumes, but people started asking the company that I was working for, you know, if I would do it in the outfit, in the Elvis outfits. So that's what happened. So then, kind of like, you know, the ones that you rent from costume places are cheesy. It's like, you know, if I'm going to do it, you got to do it right. Then I started buying the real stuff. These are two of the costumes. This is the Aloha from Hawaii costume, and this is the Burning Love costume, red. Yeah, I have a couple more. I have a black one, a blue one, a leather outfit. Sometimes people want, yeah, well, the cape for this costume you can't wear. It's too heavy. It's unbelievable how heavy it is.
How much are
they? The Hawaii one was $3,000. This one I think was like somewhere, you know, $1,700, somewhere in the $2,000 range. When you do your hair, you want to be able to do it fast and do it right. It doesn't take me long. It takes me like, you know, 10 minutes. I use like Nexus gel and then spray.
Do you feel different? You feel different when you wear the suit.
Yeah, how do you mean different?
It feels like, you feel like Elvis?
No. Not at all.
You don't want to try to take the place.
No, there's only one Elvis, you know. No, but it's, people, I think, get more excited when they see the costume, you know, and a lot of times, even if can't sing, you get away with it because people, like, they hone in on the costume.
Every time we go out somewhere, you always notice there's people like they're pointing and they're looking at him.
Yeah, that's why I usually wear a baseball cap. I did a party at somebody's house in Long Island, and it was for a 50-year-old man with Down syndrome. So the girl, the sister, called me up and she told me, you know, he's like a 10-year-old in a 50-year-old's body. So I bought him a blow-up guitar, and, you know, the scarves and the whole 9 yards. So as soon as I came out and started singing the first song, he came right up. And I gave him the guitar, and he stood there for the whole hour I was up there playing the guitar, and he knew all the songs, and I was like, that was really, really cool, and I enjoyed being there and doing that, you know. That I dug. I gave him my sunglasses. He get all, you know, it was like the coolest thing, you know. It's great, you know. It beats working at a car wash, or like I said before, breaking concrete. You know, I'm fortunate that I'm able to do something like that. I really like doing and get paid for it. That is a cool thing. Not a lot of people get to do that. They make it easy to get up and go to work, you know. That's why you do it, you know, for the kids, you know. Right, sweetheart?
We're all altered by Elvis. That's why he's the king. Thank you.
Jailhouse Rock. That's one I learned when I was a kid, you know, was singing and it just stuck with me. That's one of the biggest ones I do now by him, Jailhouse Rock. Love me tender, don't be cruel. I love a lot of them. A lot of people tend to say he copied off of a lot of black artists, you know, but still, you know, they like his music. Because when you hear his music, you can't do nothing but pat your feet, you know, pop your finger, you know.
Right.
Yeah, you might not like him as an individual, but the music speaks for itself, I think. And I looked at him and I said, Elvis, you look like shit. He looked at me and he said, I feel like shit. He says, you need some sunglasses. And he said, boy, do I. That's when the car goes in the park. I jump out of the car and I said, here's my card. I have a store, an optical store, just down the street. And I just made eyeglasses for Steve McQueen, Elton John, Sammy Davis, and the Beatles. It'd be an honor to make your glasses. He said, I'll be in to see you. Short time later, in walks Elvis Presley, bigger than life. This is Elvis Presley's distance eyeglass prescription and his reading eyeglass prescription. So I said, Elvis, what are you wearing around your neck? And he says, it's this necklace, and it's TCB to the lightning bolt. It says, taking care of business in a flash. He said, and you can pick your teeth and clean your fingernails with the lightning bolt, or taking care of anything starts with a B. Taking care of the babes and the booze. I said, well, okay, after the speech. I said, well, why don't I incorporate that idea into your eyeglasses? And he lit up like a pinball. He said, I want them in all the colors. I said, slow down, Elvis. I said, let's just make a dozen of them and see how you like them. And while I was on a roll, I said, that space in the bridge over the nose, why don't we put your initials? And he said, just do it, Denny. Call me Denny. And that's how the start of the EPTCB Lightning Bolt eyeglasses came to be. These glasses help me see women better than most glasses. I see women as Elvis saw them. They're all beautiful.
When I was 15, my mother brought home the paper one day and it said Elvis is going to appear live in Las Vegas for the first time, and first live appearance in like 9 years. So I'm like, well, I got to go. Saw the show, and when it was over, the guy with me was like, okay, here we go, let's go, out the door. I said, no, I'm going to go up here and try to meet Elvis. He said, no, you're not either. I said, yeah, I am. I spent probably 20 minutes back there just milking it for all it was worth. And he didn't act like it was a problem at all. We talked for a long time about music. He asked me what I thought of the sound in the building. I said, well, I thought it was great. What did I know? You know, it was Elvis. It could have been awful, and I would have said it sounded great.
Elvis, this is Al Wertheimer. He's going to be taking some pictures. I had known the public relations woman at RCA. And she says, Al, what are you doing on the 17th, which is Saturday night?
1956.
56, March 17th. And I said, for you, Ann, nothing. I'll be glad to do whatever you want. She said, I'd like you to photograph the Tommy Jimmy Dorsey show. I said, oh, terrific. Tommy Dorsey's one of my idols. I was a big band type guy. She said, no, not Tommy Dorsey. I want you to photograph Elvis Presley. long silence. Elvis who? Elvis Presley. We just signed him a couple of months ago. I said, well, never heard of him. She said, well, I hope you will. I call this stage show Just Another Assignment. These were done in 1956, which was the big year for Elvis. Like, for instance, here, he's getting makeup. Makeup, the first picture that I took of Elvis. Elvis is yawning. Elvis is the base of my living. And this is 50 years after the pictures have been taken.
Those 2 weeks.
Yeah, those 2 weeks. Somebody planted a panda on Elvis on the train. So ultimately that panda, 50 years later, winds up on a T-shirt and cups and mugs. Then what happens is they become this, you know, so you wind up... Well, I tell you, it's a good living. Dolce & Gabbana did a whole series of my stuff. I wish they would pay a little more royalties. If Mr. Dolce and Gabbana are listening, I'm in the phone book. New York City, I'd appreciate a few more. Thank you. The kiss starts out as a moment in time in the back of the Mosque Theater in Richmond, Virginia. It takes maybe a fraction of a second, and next thing you know, it'll be beachwear. It's become sort of my signature picture. And she says, Elvis, I'll bet you can't kiss me. And Elvis says, I'll bet you I can. She sticks out her tongue at him, like so. And then he sticks out his tongue at her, and they just touch. They barely touch. Now this is supposed to be this hot kiss. And Diane Keaton, many, many years later, she's a photo collector. She bought that print from me, and she called it the hottest picture that was ever taken in the world. I said, this woman is crazy, but I'll accept it. I'll accept it graciously. This will be on my tombstone. I have, unfortunately, got like 40,000 negatives of all kinds of people, from Eleanor Roosevelt, Paul Anka, Annette Funicello, Dion and the Belmonts. The only person anybody cares about today is Elvis Presley. Nobody cares about the Hasidim, Rebbe Schneerson and his messianic message, Daddy Grace and his 6-inch fingernails. Who cares about them? Elvis is what we want to know about.
We're altered by Elvis in so many ways, from the Sun Session records to the Las Vegas days, from a boy who had nothing to a man who could see.
It reminded me of Lilo and Stitch, you know, Stitch, the movie. And she said, oh, Vicki, a friend of mine gave that to me. And I was like, but Lori, this is like an Elvis. And she, well then, of course, you know, she had to give it to me.
The two biggest ones I ever saw come in was this big. They're there, right there. In a country called Germany, Railway Station.
If you go there, I can show you where Elvis sniffed gasoline with the Turner Boys and
sure,
Blue.
They're not going to put that in their movie, man.
Little baby, won't you kiss me? Don't you love me anymore?
And I had a really trippy experience. I drove Elvis Costello past Humes High School, where Elvis Presley went to high school. And so I was saying, you know, and this is where Elvis went to high school, and I looked in the mirror and I saw Elvis Costello, and I looked and I thought, wow, I'm the only guy on the planet right now that's talking about Elvis and looking in the mirror and seeing Elvis.
I've been with, in their prime, the most handsome men on the silver screen. Warren Beatty, Paul Newman, and I'm going to tell you, honestly, no one looked like Elvis. He outshined them all. He just had that extra factor, whatever it is. He had the eyes, he had the voice, he had the demeanor, he had the talent, he had the fans, the fame, he also had the hair. He had gorgeous hair.
Hey, little baby, were you drinking? Leaving me all alone without a wife. Well, you weren't thinking, but I think you was drinking. Why don't you let rock and roll be your cure, baby?
Pretty nice.
I said rock and roll is the cure.
100 Elvises in mass, like an army, wouldn't take me on. Because I could put one punch at a time, put 100 of them in the hospital.